All right, welcome back to the show. And if you haven't been here before, well, where the hell were you? Anyway, this is Critical Weight Theory, and today I'm talking about BBQ Brawl or BBQ Brawl, Flay versus Symon, Season 1, Episode 2, High Stakes, which aired on August 8, 2019. So if you like big beef, pressure cooking, and a little chaos, this episode delivers. And it's actually not the first episode of this foodie series that I've covered. I've looked at the very first episode and I shared a recipe in that episode. So for this one, I've also got a cheap, low effort recipe at the end. And it does require a little bit of effort perhaps, but it's a very I think a good recipe. I like it. I've tried it, and in fact I'm going to be having the same thing tonight after, sometime after I get done recording this episode. So I'm going to tell you up front this recipe that I'm sharing is not necessarily true barbecue, and you could probably even microwave it if you needed, well, parts of it anyway, if you need to. But it does use barbecue sauce if you want to use barbecue sauce, and it might keep you fed for a couple of days. So that has its own merit, I would say. So, granted, you could use the ingredients that I will list for you in a barbecue fashion. So they could be applied in a barbecue style. So it's not like it's completely antithetical to the episode here, but it's really just more of a general recipe that I tried out and it was successful. So anyway, on to the episode, and then I'll give you the recipe later. So by this point in the season, things are tightening up. The pitmasters are feeling the pressure, and Bobby Flay and Michael Symon are doing what they do best, turning barbecue into a contact sport. And I'll keep the spoilers in this review too, by the way. So I don't think it's going to be quite like a person ruining Star Wars or something like that. It's not. Even though the episode is called High Stakes, I don't think anybody would be too burnt by me revealing who won. And I'm going to get into those details. Who was eliminated, that kind of stuff. So, in the first segment, you have the captains going head to head. Yes, the episode opens with an advantage round, and you have Bobby Flay and Michael Symon facing off directly in a tomahawk ribeye challenge. There really are no teams for this part exactly, which some people didn't see the appeal of. Like, if you look at some reviews of the episode, they're like, well, shouldn't this be more about the teams and not the coaches or the mascots of the teams or whatever? But I get it. They're trying to highlight why these two famous chefs are famous in the first place. And it is kind of neat to see just two chefs and the massive stakes, pun intended, probably, and the bragging rights, the jovial rivalry that they have going on between them. It's kind of fun. The tomahawk ribeyes are unforgiving. You can't really hide mistakes behind sauce or the plating that easily. And if the cook is off, everyone sees it. And for the record, a tomahawk steak is basically a ribeye with a huge bone sticking out of it, as one person on Reddit described it. So it's actually not the most visually appealing steak, at least in my opinion. I've looked at images of it in addition to seeing them in this episode, and they really do look like their namesake. Like they look like tomahawks a little bit. It's a little bit odd, but apparently some people they like steaks done that way. So the winner earns an advantage that affects the rest of the competition. So it isn't just about ego. You have some skill involved like fire control, seasoning, timing, and resting the meat. All of those things matter. And it's a reminder that barbecue fundamentals still rule, even at the highest level. And even these two, as skilled as they are, you get the sense that they could mess up. And I guess that's what keeps people interested and engaged. And in the second segment, you've got the six pit masters, Texas beef, and of course the clock that's always ticking. The focus shifts to the six remaining contestants. They're given a Texas style beef challenge, which immediately raises the stakes. Again, play on words, I suppose. And Texas barbecue is about simplicity and respect for the meat. That's a weird sounding sentence, but nevertheless, it's true. If the beef isn't done right, there's nowhere to hide, especially with those judges who are looking to be finicky. You know how judges can be. I mean, they're there literally to judge, so of course they're going to be judgmental. I mean, it's right there in the name. And each pitmaster has to cook a beef dish and a side under tight time limits. Now, again, I looked at some critiques of the episode, and some people are like, why do they even have side dishes? Who cares about that? Well, I mean, I would say that if you're having a meal, you like to have side dishes. So it augments the flavor of, the main dish. So I didn't take any issue with that. I thought it was understandable. And you have uh some time limits that are making things especially tough. And it's tougher when you've got these uh approaches that sometimes require long cooking time and some time for things to rest, so that there's additional pressure. And that's, I guess, one of the things that makes the show more exciting. And there is a third segment of sorts, which is a bit of a curveball. Midway through the cook, the show throws in an exciting curveball described as a run for the border moment. Basically, just tacos. And, they have to change their plans. The ingredients are shifted, and their confidence gets tested because they've already got to, make these sort of elaborate meals with strict time limits, but then they're also making them create tacos and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a challenge that's intended to keep things exciting and keep people on their toes. And it works. It's a moment where judgment matters more than technique, even. So, can you pivot without panicking? Can you adjust the seasoning and timing without losing your identity on the plate? And some contestants handle it well, others struggle. I'll just put it like that. So, with the clock running out, you've got uh, big bold beef, and that fits the Texas theme. It isn't about a fancy barbecue. It's more about smoke, salt, and the respect for the meat, which again is a funny sounding sentence. But when it works, it shines. When it doesn't, the flaws are obvious. And if you've ever had bad barbecue, you'll know. It just doesn't taste right. Now, I'm not skilled at barbecue myself necessarily. You know, um, I've never really actually conducted a barbecue. I mean, I've helped at a barbecue a little bit, but I'm not like a pit master, and I'm certainly not a five-star chef. So the judges aren't just making sure that the food tastes good; they're asking if it honors the style. So it's a process where even the judges have a little bit of an extra task here, because they're supposed to stick on to the assignment as well. And that's another interesting dynamic, I suppose. And then there's the judging and the elimination. You've got a focus on flavor, texture, execution, and how well each pitmaster handled both the challenge and the twist. By the end, one competitor is eliminated, and it's not about villains or heroes, just the reality of competition barbecue. Someone had a rough cook and the field gets smaller, you know? So here's the dishes and the outcomes for the Texas Beef Challenge. Each pitmaster prepared a Texas style beef dish, a side, and that taco twist that was added partway through. So for Team Bobby Flay, you've got Tuffy Stone. Yep, that's his name. He had smoked brisket that was judged too dry, and his risky choice led to elimination. Ouch. So Tuffy Stones seemed like a cool guy, but he was out of there at the end. Then there's Phil Johnson, a bit of a middle of the pack kind of guy, and he survived though, even though he wasn't considered a top contender for the ultimate winner. There's Leanne Whippen, who had solid execution and was safe from elimination. And as far as the team of Michael Symon, you had Linne Oxley Lupe, I believe that's how that's pronounced. But the beef was criticized as underseasoned, if I recall. But the shrimp taco earned praise for flavor and texture. And I love shrimp tacos, so you know, that's one of those things where it seems like it'd be kind of tricky to mess it up because shrimp on a taco, even if it doesn't have the best ingredients, I think that's going to be good personally. So that was a wise choice in my estimation. I know some people out there probably don't like shrimp, so they would obviously disagree on that point. But if you like shrimp, I think you're going to love shrimp tacos if you've never had any of that. Then there's Kerry Bringle. He tried too many dishes on one plate. Apparently, he over seasoned. They were unevenly cooked, and it put him in danger, and he didn't make it. There's Susie Bullock. She made it through without landing in the bottom. I don't really remember that much about what happened there. But the eliminated ones were Tuffy Stone and Corey Bringle. So the results, you know, they underlined the episode's theme. You had big Texas beef, cooked simply under pressure with very little margin of error. And High Stakes is a strong early episode because it sets the tone for the season and for the show overall. Barbecue is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. Time management matters, just like so much other cooking out there. And adaptability matters when it comes to different, I guess, elements. So if you're watching along, this is the episode where you start to see who can handle the heat and who might flame out. And I'm sure I'll eventually look at another one of these episodes. So now I'm going to actually get into my recipe. And just a reminder, this is not necessarily a conventional barbecue recipe, although you could apply barbecue methods to it. It's basically a cheap barbecue chicken sandwich with low effort required, but hopefully high return. I actually enjoyed it when I tried it yesterday. So here are the ingredients. You can use chicken breasts if you want, or pulled chicken, which is actually what I used. I bought pulled chicken from the store, or if you're really in a hurry, like if you're really rushing, you could even buy some microwavable chicken nuggets to use this. Like if you're really, I guess, scraping the bottom of the barrel. Not that there's anything wrong necessarily with chicken nuggets, but obviously it's not going to be the highest class of, I guess, cooking. But I also, added barbecue sauce. I had hamburger buns. I chose to use some onion infused hamburger buns. And my only complaint about them is that I didn't taste enough onion in the hamburger buns. So if I'm ever going to buy some onion buns again, I'm going to try to find something that actually has more of the onion flavor to it. Anyway, I also bought some coleslaw from the store, which I added on top, and I sliced up some apples that I added on top as well. And you could dice the apples if you want, and mix it in with the coleslaw. It's up to you. I was lazy, so I didn't chop it. I just sliced them, you know. And oddly enough, it doesn't ruin anything, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm just not that picky. I don't know. But I thought the apple went really well with the cooked pulled chicken and the coleslaw. It all worked pretty good. Of course, you can do this with pan frying, in which case you'd want to use some, maybe vegetable oil or maybe butter if you want to add that to the pan. You could add some salt and pepper, obviously. Interestingly enough, I didn't add any of that stuff. I didn't add any salt or pepper. I just went with the barbecue sauce and the coleslaw, feeling that that would give me enough flavor. And of course, the chicken itself provided flavor. So, you heat up the chicken. You could actually barbecue it again if you want. And, possibly over medium high heat and in a skillet or any other way that you want to prepare it. It's ultimately up to you. You could just nuke the chicken nuggets if you want, if you're cheap, like, and you're low on time. That make sure that you want to make sure that the chicken nuggets might have something like barbecue sauce on them, um and to give them a little added flavor. You can season the chicken as desired. uh Salt, pepper. I'm not much of a salt person myself. I'm definitely more of a pepper person. And of course, it's up to you what sort of barbecue sauce you want. Sweet Baby Ray's is a very common brand, at least in the area where I live. So I just, use that, or any old barbecue sauce. I'm not that picky. I'm not the sort of elitist food type. So go ahead and add barbecue sauce. It's really one of the good things about this dish. Nice and simple. And then you top it with the chicken and or I mean not the chicken, the coleslaw mixed with sliced apple or chopped apples or whatever, Technically you could add some other stuff, and you could have like potato chips on the side if you want. I actually had apple pie on the side with this. I had the apples on the coleslaw, and then I had apple pie along with it. So it was almost like an apple overdose, I guess. And you could also toast the hamburger buns if you want. That's maybe something that I should have done. It might have actually brought out the flavor of the onion. So that might have been a mistake on my part. I don't know. And, you pile the chicken on with the coleslaw. It's cheap, it's filling, and it works for a couple of days, like I said. And here's another thing. Now, I don't know if you like ginger beer, but I drank ginger beer along with this, and it really tasted good. Now, I kind of prefer ginger beer much more than ginger ale. I don't know why, I just think it has more of a kick. But what I really like about ginger beer is that it's a kick, but it's sort of like a subtle kick. It's not like too overpowering. And that's a really hard thing to balance. It's hard to get that balance right when it comes to a beverage or a food. To have a little bit of a kick, like whatever, a jolt to it, but not be overpowering. That's kind of what I like. It's like when it comes to spicy food or hot sauce. I, it might make me sound like a wuss, but I don't like hot sauce to be too overpowering. I like it to be there for a little bit of heat, but I don't want it to like totally conquer the rest of the meal and just overpower everything else. There's something to be said about subtlety, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I hope you like this episode. I don't know. It's always a little bit experimental when I do something like this because I'm by no means a professional chef, and there will always be people who hate reviews no matter, or they'll hate content no matter what I say, how I say it. It really doesn't matter. There's always going to be haters out there. That's what I've discovered. But if you're open minded and there's nothing that crazy in this recipe. So I think some people might enjoy it, you know. So go ahead and give it a try if you're into, barbecue sauce on chicken and stuff like that. So I might eventually do more of these TV show episode reviews that involve food competitions. But I'm probably going to give it a little bit of a break because it's not really the normal type of content I do. But if you enjoy it, go ahead and let me know. I'm sure some people out there might be into this. I don't know. But anyway, have a good day. I've said enough here.